Don't just make your fucking beats.
I'm about my game. Live by the rules, we don't play the same. That's on my grave, that's on my name. I'm saying, I'm about my paper, about my game. I'm about my game.
What is up, everybody? This is Thomas Christopher of the League Winners. As you can see, I'm back in the studio this time. A little shakeup from last week, unfortunately, due to a variety of reasons. But we're back. We're back in the studio, back feeling good, back feeling nice. And it's another Tuesday for the College Football Now segment, brought to you by myself and the League Winners. This is a live show, so if you're watching for the first time, please make sure to click that like button. It does a lot to help us out over here. It's completely easy and free to do so. If you're watching on Facebook, make sure to click that like button. Make sure to share it to your friends. You can leave a comment. This is a live show as well, so if you're on Facebook, Twitter, or on YouTube and you're watching this show live, feel free to leave a comment and we'll get back to you during the live segment of the show. And if you end up commenting on the show after it has ended, give me 24, 48 hours and we will make sure to always get back to you live and able to do so. Now, if you're watching on X/Twitter, make sure to click that like button to do it. It's completely free. Make sure to give it a retweet. Retweets are always nice and fun, right? And then if you're watching on YouTube, click that like button. Also, feel free to click that subscribe button as well if you like college football content. If this is your first time watching, once again, we do bring League Winners. We're a college football company. We're nationally credentialed. We like to bring on writers, whether it's from my company or from elsewhere across the nation, who are credentialed not just with college football, but in college sports in and of itself. We get the fine and dandy Dan Tortoras of the world. Shout out to him. Daniel Zuniga's out in New Mexico. Out in Albuquerque. Shout out to him. Shout out to Dan Tortora in Syracuse. We might have him on the show later tonight. Maybe not. He's at an ACC event, actually, as we speak. I just got off the phone with him not that long ago. Shout out, Dan. Appreciate you. Love your brother. We'll have Brandyn Pokrass, our vice president of the League Winners, on the show tonight, as well as Robbie Lastella to talk some Florida Atlantic Owls football. And maybe we'll have a surprise guest. And if you stay tuned, we also have, if you watched the show last week, we featured Landon Robinson's interview with us at the East-West Shrine Bowl this past year. There was a funny tidbit on there from Caleb Fortner, whose interview we'll be showing tonight from the Army side. Very, very fun story from him, and just the rivalry that the two military academies have. Very fun stuff. Very, very cool. I think you guys will enjoy it a lot. But with that said, spring practices are starting. We'll talk about a little bit of FIU's spring practice that started today. USF, the USF South Florida Bulls, now with Brian Hartline at head coach. They will start theirs tomorrow. And if you're watching this on the audio podcast, they're actually starting theirs today. So that'll be very fascinating to see how Brian Hartline settles in with the Bulls and how he kind of picks up after Alex Golish's departure. As we know, Alex Golish is an Auburn. Shout out Shane Barrett from the company there, big Auburn guy. So it'll be fascinating to see that. Fascinating to see Willie Simmons going to year 2. We have Zach Marker from Delaware, who's actually one of the quarterbacks participating for that starting gig right now. It'd be fascinating to see. And speaking of Delaware, I'm going to be at Delaware's Pro Day on Friday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern time. There's a lot of really great players on there. Kaveh Duplessis, Jake Thaw is another one. Many are familiar with Jake Thaw in the Rose Bowl when he was a player at Michigan. But Jake Thaw is a very awesome kid, very gadget, very, very great in the slot, very shovel lunch pail kind of player. Fantastic guy. He's also a Jets fan, so as you guys can see, I probably have a little affinity for him, but I do appreciate him. But speaking of pro days, we can't go without talking about Navy's pro day that happened on the 5th, 5 days ago. So 6 days ago if you're listening to the audio. So obviously there's a lot of great players there. Blake Horvath was there. Alex Teska, the running back from Naval Academy. Brian Chapman, the wide receiver / slot back from the academy. Eli Heidenreich also performed some duties there. They had a couple safeties, but the big show there was obviously Landon Robinson, the interior defensive lineman for the Navy midshipman. He was on Bruce Feldman's freak list prior to the 2025 season. And the guy is just an animal, man. We were fortunate enough. I mean, if you watched the show last week, you saw our interview with him. Fortunate enough to talk with him and see him perform at that level. He was I believe he was one of the only non-autonomy players on the interior defensive line to become a first team All-American, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, feel free to double check me in the comments. I do appreciate that. Comments are always welcome, especially on the live show. Appreciate you guys. But we can't talk without, how he performed in that content. A lot of comparisons to Aaron Donald. Now, if you've been watching anything, we're seeing that he was becoming kind of mentored by Aaron Donald. So that was pretty cool to see. The size concerns, I think, are a little overblown. Landon's about 5'11", but he's also 290 something pounds. And you have to remember, when you're talking about Naval Academy players, Army Academy players, and the Air Force players, they're not just using their athleticism for the 5 to 10 second bursts that you'll see in a football play. They have to be able to be physically fit to endure more than that going forward. Whether it's, the case of Landon Robinson, who is supposed to be a special, a special unit, be part of the special units. Sorry, my stuttering. And so you got to imagine a guy that's 290 pounds and able to run miles with ease, able to do all of the training that Navy SEALs will have to do. That's just incredible to think about. And imagine a player like that in an NFL locker room, in an NFL weight room, where he can just focus primarily on playing the game of football and not just things outside of life or outside of the football world. A player like Landon Robinson, he was probably the biggest snub of the NFL Combine in and of itself. That was also big news, but it's everybody has to admit at some point that he's a guy that needs to be looked at more. He's a guy that's going to be looked at more. There was rumors that there was 32 teams there. From what my understanding was, there was only about 20 to 22 teams there confirmed. But I have talked to Landon's agent, and all 32 teams have at least spoken to him and reached out to him, all 32 teams. So that'll be fascinating to see. Eli Heidenreich, there's a lot of fan love for Eli Heidenreich. If you're not familiar with him, he is a slot back from the Naval Academy as well. Played primarily wide receiver this past season, a lot more wide receiving chops, but he's also a running back. And at the Shrine Bowl, they actually deployed Eli Heidenreich more as a running back. The pro day, he was able to do some of the pass catching stuff that most fans know him for. He's a guy flying under a lot of people's radar, a lot of, Christian McCaffrey light comparisons for Eli, which is great. Eli's a great kid as well. And it's going to be fascinating to see if he's able to not just garner interest like the social media, but if teams believe in that going forward. This is a big thing for the Naval Academy players. A lot of them don't necessarily get the opportunities at the next level because of everything that entails their service. So it'll be fascinating to see. And I can't wait to see that. Illinois State had theirs, Wisconsin also had theirs the day after on the 6th. Shout out to Mason Reiger. He's a fantastic player as well. He's a guy who I think is creeping up draft boards as the draft process has progressed. He's another guy at the East-West Shrine Bowl that really stood out, not just to me, but to my VP, Brandyn Pokrass. Not just in the one-on-one drills, because in the one-on-one drills, he wasn't necessarily as impressive, but the live drills where he's actually going against players that he's theoretically going to be competing against as he tries to, make an NFL team. And he was winning those reps with ease. Just absolutely dominating players, and that was very fascinating to see. On the 9th, we had Lehigh, so not too many. We're talking more about CFL guys, Arena League guys, stuff like that. But then on the 10th, we have Colorado State, which is fascinating. We have Monmouth too. Derek Robertson, a multi-CAA conference player of the year, quarterback for Monmouth. He was attended there. He is another player who is actually at the East-West Shrine Bowl as well. He is a fantastic player in and of his own right. He's somebody that I thought was going to get more looks nationally, but it's just kind of luck of the draw when it comes to the FCS players. Then we have Norfolk State. Then we had San Diego State. San Diego State as well. Chris Johnson, as you guys know, I'm a big fan of him. And then we on the 11th, which is that was today for the moment, this 10th. So tomorrow, if you're watching this live, there will be Kansas's pro day. If you're watching this on the audio, Kansas's pro day is today. So congratulations on that. Jalen Daniels is set to be there. He's probably the biggest name that's going to be on that list. But there's a very fascinating group of players on that team. I mean, it's going to be. I'm very curious to see how that team performs this upcoming year, but that'll be great. And then on the 12th we have Clemson, Delaware State, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. So a lot of big names are going to be on that. Obviously, the most familiar one that everybody's going to be talking about is Cade Klubnik. Excuse me. But there is a Marvin Jones Jr. out in Oklahoma that I think is going to be, he's getting a lot of love from the NFL because of his father, Marvin Jones Sr. As we all know, as a Jets fan, I already know, no, you don't have to ask me twice. Big fan of Marvin Jones. He's getting a lot of love because of his father, namesake, but he also performed pretty well at the East-West Shrine Bowl too. So he's somebody that he's got the intangibles, he's got the length, he's got the strength, he's got the speed. It's just whether or not he can put it all together. It'll be very fascinating to see if he's able to do so. Then we get a little bit of a break, and then we have Abilene Christian, South Carolina, which will be fascinating. Syracuse is on the 16th. That's coming up quick. And then we have Washington as well. For Syracuse, I mean, we're kind of looking at 3 players for the Syracuse Orange. That'd be Deuce Chestnut. He was a safety / cornerback. He played both with Syracuse. He started as a cornerback. When he returned, he came back as a safety. A little bit undersized, but he's a player who is gritty. He's a leader. He's very clearly a leader. I got to see him I covered Syracuse all year, but I also got to see him at the Hula Bowl, and he was somebody that took charge. He did what he was supposed to do, and he ended up leading everything, leading everything on the defensive side of the ball. Sorry, we just have the Baltimore pulled out of the Max deal. So if you guys are listening right now, Max Crosby and Baltimore Ravens, I guess, is not happening. This is live news being broken right now, which has already been broken. So that'll be that's going to be very interesting. And supposedly he did not pass his physical per Diana Rossini. So very fascinating stuff. Max Crosby is actually not going to be going to the Baltimore Ravens because of a failed physical. So very fascinating stuff. But back to some spring practice pro days. We're talking Syracuse, Deuce Chestnut, as I said. He's a player who's really stood out as a leader. He's undersized. He played cornerback in his first stint with Syracuse, left, came back under head coach Fran Brown. They moved him to safety, which a lot of people think he was playing out of position at safety. But he's a dog, man. He's a leader. He understands where he needs to be on third down. He's a very intellectual player. I'm a huge fan of him, and just his personality, his mindset. He doesn't let his size get the best of him. I think he could potentially be a slot cornerback in the NFL. He has good coverage skills. He understands where the ball is, and he's not afraid to tackle and get dirty. So I think that physicality for his undersizedness will make up. His physicality, being undersized, will make up for any lack of height that he may face issue-wise as he proceeds to the next level. But the other 2 players, Jack Stonehouse, he's probably the main kicker, or punter, that's going to probably go in the NFL draft. He's fantastic. He was fantastic at the East-West Shrine Bowl as well. Eventually, you guys are going to hear an interview with him on this because we did get to speak with him at the East-West Shrine Bowl as well. You're going to find a common theme that we've talked to most of the players going in this NFL draft. But the final player is Dan Villari, is the other guy getting major looks from NFL teams. Dan Villari was a guy he started as a quarterback prospect, was asked to transition to tight end when he got to Syracuse, played tight end, played quarterback in a little wildcat offense. He's done some running back stuff as well. Dan Villari is the ultimate utility tool. I mean, he's a man's man. He's a football player at its core. And I wish I was able to talk to him at the Hula Bowl. He's just a fantastic kid. Shout out to Daniel Tortora. They have the Neopolo Dan's show. Make sure you guys check that out on Wake Up Call. But Dan Villari, he's a fantastic guy. And this past season, before Steve Angeli tore his Achilles, it was very clear that we were going to see the breakout of Dan Villari. He was 5th in the yardage. I believe he was 5th in yardage for tight ends before Steve Angeli's injury. He was making critical plays on third down. He was securing. He was showing he was a dynamic threat, not just as a blocker, but as a pass catcher. And I don't think people necessarily saw Villari's having that part of his game be a part of his game, if that makes sense. So Dan Villari is a player that I'm very fascinated in seeing where he ends up, whether he ends up being a day 2 player or day 3 player. He's very under the radar right now. You probably won't find too many people talking about him, but he's a guy that's going to be playing in the NFL. You can write that down. And he may not be, like I said, may not be a day 2 guy, he may even get past Sunday, but he's going to stick on an NFL team, in the NFL. Not even if it's not just team, he'll stick in the NFL. I promise that. Also, I do want to give a shout out to the draftnetwork.com for their schedule of the 2026 pro days. If you look on NFL, they're only going to show you the big schools, and I'm not a fan of that stuff. But we'll continue. So 317 continue through the pro days for this week. So the last one on the 17th, if you're listening on this audio podcast, it'll be still on the 17th, is the Northwestern. One player to keep an eye out for Northwestern is Aiden Hubbard. He's an edge rusher. He's a very dynamic guy. He may more so be a one down player at the NFL, set pass and situational drills. Aiden Hubbard could find himself to be very useful. I'm very curious to see how he performs, because he's another player that we mentioned who actually stood out at the East-West Shrine Bowl as well. So I'm very fascinated to see how Aiden performs. He's another good kid. He's very quiet. He knows what he wants to do. He's trying to make the best out of this opportunity, because Northwestern wasn't necessarily a great team this past year. So no offense to them, obviously we don't want to take anything away from the kids at all. So, but that's just, the facts. And he ended up performing well. So it's great to see that. I want to see him continue to do so. But, that's kind of the wind up until we get to this past week, at least in terms of pro days. Like I said, I'll have Brandyn Pokrass on to talk FIU football for spring practices, which started today. If you're listening to audio, started yesterday. And he's actually in Tampa Bay right now to cover the USF Bulls spring practice, which will be tomorrow if you're watching this live on video. And I will be at the Delaware Pro Day on the Friday, this upcoming Friday. So it'll be fascinating to see that as well. But like I said at the beginning of the show, make sure if you're watching, click that like button. It's completely free to do so. If you want to share the show, I do appreciate that. It would mean a lot to me. If you're watching on YouTube right now, hit that subscribe button. It's completely free to do so as well. If you like the content like college football, and we do a lot of player interviews and things of that nature. And actually, speaking of, I did talk about how we were going to have a Caleb Fortner interview. So in our first intermission, we had an interesting story. If you watched last week's show, Landon Robinson was our feature interview for the show that we talked to him at the Shrine Bowl. And in the interview, there's a little tidbit from Army's Caleb Fortner about something that the Army Academy does to kind of throw shade at Air Force and Navy. I think it's completely funny and excellent and hilarious to do so. So I'm going to put this one on, and I hope you guys enjoy this interview as much as I did, because this was great. Let me present this on here. Give me 1 second, fella. I'm sorry. All right, let's go.
All right, man. I'm Caleb Fortner from Knoxville, Tennessee. Play inside linebacker at Army West Point.
Now, playing on a military academy, there's so many differences as opposed to playing at a regular college football program. Brotherhood is a real thing there. Can you just talk about the tight-knit nature of your time with the Black Knights?
Yeah, it's very tight-knit, and the landscape of college football today, it's not the same. And I'm hearing on the bus going to and from practice about guys and NIL funds and what they made and whatnot, and it's just not a thing for the academies. We get paid DOD. It's whatever it looks like for your class, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. It's all different, and it's just not a problem for us. Everybody in that locker room loves each other, cares about each other, knows each other's hometown of high school, and it's a very close bond. It's a true brotherhood.
Being an event like this, what has your time with Army West Point really allowed you to do differently than maybe some other guys at this event?
I'd say it's allowed me to mature a lot faster and develop leadership ability, a lot better and sharper than most of these guys. And I really appreciate what Army and being a cadet has done for me in terms of character and integrity and having humility. I appreciate it.
Yeah, obviously playing on their monkey, he's really took that program and put it at the next level. Can you just talk about his leadership, what he's been able to teach you, not just on the field, but off the field?
Yeah, he's very professional. He does a good job. I mean, he's truly like a businessman in the football world. Like he treats it so professional. He demands a lot. He's a very respected leader, not only at football at West Point, but amongst the academy. And he does a good job of leading the program and helping us, get victory with not as much talent on the football field. And he does a good job of leading us.
You've already shown it this week, but you are a stout run defender. The way you read and react is honestly some of my favorite I've been able to watch. What goes into being able to diagnose plays? Is it a lot of film? Is it a lot of just experience? And being at an event like this, how are you hoping to continue to show off that skill?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of film review and experience. Fortunately, I've had a lot of plays under my belt at Army, and some of it's kind of muscle memory and understanding. There's only so many play concepts and designs that these OCs can write up, and I think mostly it's going to translate out here with understanding different fronts that I'm seeing in front of me, bigger creatures in front of me, and how to use my technique and fundamentals to continue to slip blocks and be a good run stopper.
Yeah, and obviously you have a great position group here, a lot of NFL coaches as well. Is there anything that they're teaching you that you may not have learned at West Point?
Yeah, it's really all terminology that's different. It's kind of, we under Coach Woody and his defensive staff, I've been fortunate to learn a lot of good football knowledge and have good IQ. But, at this level, it's just all new terminology at a different level, at a higher level, obviously. But, it's kind of helped me translate and kind of digest what what these coaches are telling me kind of in Army's terms, because we only have 5 days to kind of learn a new couple plays. But it's been good.
Tying into that, in your short time here, what have you already been able to pick up from some of these pro level coaches?
I think obviously some of it's new terminology and terminology that I'm sure other NFL teams use, but other than that, it's kind of just been a mindset and edge and kind of understanding how to play pro style offenses, because we don't really see that in the American as much, and it's kind of more common at the next level anyway. So kind of understanding where you need to put your eyes and how fast you need to play and where you need to scrape. It's kind of been different, but I've learned a lot.
And I got to ask you, man, obviously the Army Navy game is one of the biggest games in all of college football. Obviously, you guys play Air Force as well, but there just seems to be that little extra in the Army Navy game. Can you just talk about that experience, the mentality playing in that game? You played in massive stadiums, so seeing all of those fans being able to support you guys. Can you just talk about that experience?
Yeah, it means so much to not only the people at the academy, but the men and women that represent the Army and the Navy. And it's truly an emotional driven game. And did you guys get to go to the game? Yeah, I mean the atmosphere is second to none, right? So it's just it's truly a blessing to be able to play in three and play every defensive snap in the last three Army Navy games. I mean it's truly something I'll never forget. And you know those guys across the line of scrimmage, you hate them then, but you might serve next to them later down the road. So it's just a big rivalry, and you play by the rules of football in those games, but you're really coming for blood when you play those rivals. And in our bathrooms we literally have the Navy and Air Force emblems in the urinals. So that's how big that rivalry means to us.
As you head toward the next level, you know, what is the main thing that you want to be able to showcase at an event like this and going forward? And then kind of tying into that, who's a player that you want to try to model your game after as you progress towards the professional level?
I think for me it's kind of just like it's kind of modeling my play after Clay Matthews. I think he or Luke Kuechly rather. I think they both study a lot of film, and both of those guys are very physically gifted, and me not as much as a 6 foot 225 20 pound white linebacker, right? So I think for me it's just digesting a lot of film and being able to play one or two steps faster than guys that run that 4.4 that 4.5 speed, and that'll help me kind of get an edge on those guys. And that's pretty much what I've done my entire career is just digest film really well, understand how I can be a step or two faster than the running backs I'm playing or the receivers I'm playing.
I was fortunate enough to watch a few other Army games in person. I was at the Tarleton State and the home opener that disappointing loss, but I was also at the Temple game where you guys snuck out a victory there too. Can you just talk about the highs and the lows of the season, to where there was a question with whether or not you guys would even make a bowl game? You guys fought through the final stretch of that season, and you ended up getting in the bowl game and winning it.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely a different year than it was for 2024. We had a lot of success that year. Really didn't face as much adversity, but last year was kind of roller coaster, like you just said, ups and downs. Tarleton State, and then the next week going and beating a preseason ranked Kansas team with really good skill set. And then for the following week, battling back against a really good North Texas team, taking them to overtime after we spotted them 21 points in the first quarter. So just a lot of adversity we faced. But I'll tell you what, going down the stretch there, I was pretty confident in our ability to make a bowl game. And it was kind of what I've noticed from Army teams amongst the years is that we get better through the season, just like any team. But really, it's our defense, and our defense is able to stop teams, and offense we're able to put up more points than other teams and secure the 6 wins to make a bowl game. So that was really awesome. It came down to the last one, UTSA. It was like It was the last one. It was all or nothing there. Yeah.
Over the remainder of this process, what is the biggest thing, whether it be on the field or off the field, that you are looking forward to?
That I want to what now?
That you're looking forward to?
I think it's really just the relationships I'm building here. Like my roommate Malik Spencer from Michigan State, defensive back, really cool guy. Got to talking with him. His homeboy is Army receiver Toby Alawale, and so just like small connections, understanding like where guys have came from and people I may know at the school, and just kind of connecting with them that way, or having played against them. I played a lot of against a lot of these guys here, and it's just really cool to connect back with them, see them, and for example, the Syracuse tight end, really good guy, Dan Villari. Yeah. I mean, he's gonna play on Sundays for sure. And I just remember that guy in the dome over there in Syracuse being a really hard player to stop. And it's really cool to connect back with him and to talk with guys like that. Dean Connor's another guy, so it's been awesome.
Now, I wanted to ask you, because obviously Dwayne started the season as a starter, and then Kale ended up coming in. Could you just talk about his leadership ability on the team? Because I'm sure it's hard for somebody who doesn't get much time to come in and have to presume to be the starter.
Yeah, absolutely. Dwayne's he's a hell of a leader. He really is. He's got a daughter, and being at West Point, obviously it's not the easiest thing, especially when you have a kid, and have the starting role and then kind of find yourself as a backup later in the season. It's hard to do, and it's hard to be supportive of the guy in front of you. But I'll tell you what, man, he's been supportive of Kale Helms all year long, and he's always been ready to go. And he's just a guy that everybody can lean on and cut up with. He's a really good guy.
Awesome. And the last question before we get you out, if you have any social media, where can fans go find you at?
Yeah, man, I got Instagram, Fortner.53, and then Twitter, Caleb Fortner altogether. So I appreciate you guys, man.
Oh, it's just going to keep me small. There it goes. Hey, this wouldn't be this show without a little bit of a technical error on my end. User operator error, as I like to say. That was, Caleb Fortner from Army West Point. Fantastic player, fantastic guy, and I hope you like that little tidbit that we had there. And like I said, like I mentioned earlier in the show, Dan Villari is going to be playing on Sundays. I mean, I'm not the only guy who thinks that, so it makes me feel a little bit good about myself. I'm going to pat myself on the back there. But we do have our next guest in the green room. I talked about him earlier. He was at today's FIU spring football practice, and he's going to be at USF's tomorrow. If you're listening on the audio, then it's today. It is Vice President of the League Winners, Brandyn Pokrass. Brandyn, how are you doing, my friend? Muted himself. Oh, we still can't hear you. Nothing. Oh no, it's glitching out him. Hey, what did I say about technical difficulties? Am I right? Still nothing. Oh no. Okay.
Hear me?
Oh, there it goes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. That was weird.
All right, let's try this again. Hello, happy to be here. Before I got on, obviously had a nice little drive to Tampa. NFL stories just dropping out of the sky, including.
There we saw the Max Crosby one. Yeah,
probably what would you say the biggest NFL news story we've had in probably calendar year, maybe more? It's probably one of the craziest grade stories I've ever seen.
Yeah, the missed failed physical is not great.
Well, it's not just about the failed physical. It's that the Raiders had gone out, signed multiple players, done multiple deals where they're paying guys a lot of money. Now that Crosby contract is back on their books. All the deals have to be official tomorrow. Now the Ravens have to pivot. Now all these teams that were in the Crosby sweepstakes, they've already made moves. This is one of the craziest moves they're one of the craziest things I've seen in the NFL in the Lord knows how long. But this is insane.
Yeah, and we actually have our because of the technical. We have a third upcoming guest. I talked about him at the top of the hour earlier in the show. He's a great friend of the show. Well, I like to bring him in. Is Robbie Lastella. Robbie, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, guys. The football off season's coming for you guys, but I'm in the midst of it right now. Big basketball, it's the biggest part of the year. I'm all into that. And some NFL off season stuff too. I just heard you guys talking a little bit about the NFL when I came in here. So paying attention to that. Sticking with FAU got spring ball coming up, and like I said, it's the midst of basketball season. So I'm all over the place, but happy to be here.
It looks awesome, man. Are you just coming from a game now?
No. I needed a quiet spot to hop on here, so I'm in the car. Got the dog with me and everything.
I love it. I love it, man. So we haven't heard much yet about FAU's Pro Day in terms of when it's going to be, but I just wanted to know from you, Robbie, is there any key players that fans, should know or are familiar names that fans will know who are participating?
The senior class definitely wasn't too heavy. Last couple of years, FAU has put a couple of guys into the pros. Guys who have maybe not the most flashiest of careers at FAU, but they do the right things. Right. Last year, Devontae Davis was with the Colts on the practice squad for a little bit. He was an interior D lineman last year, the Herman era. Guys I look at in a similar sense, potentially Bryce Langston. He had SEC size. He's obviously got the size to potentially keep growing and potentially fit into an NFL interior lineman type of role. Najon Barber as well. He was a really good run stuffer in his role last year. So, guys like that who, have success in their roles, if they can kind of work out a similar type of role in the NFL rather than trying to, do everything, that I feel like they can, get a niche. Wendell Fullord, he's a guy who's got a ton of experience. I don't know, necessarily, I'm forgetting. I think he's almost 26 at this point, maybe 25. NFL teams, they tend to be a little age cautious, but I can definitely see him hopping on, maybe in a CFL type deal, and working his way up. DB wise, Demarius McGee, Chris Keys as well. Both guys, SEC bounce backs, had decent years last year. Maybe potential practice squad guys as well. Offensive line wise, not as much. Nobody this year to keep an eye out on. Next year, though, if Vinny Fiacabo has a good year, that's a guy I'm keeping an eye out on for sure next season. So, Pro Day wise this year, I'm definitely a couple guys like I mentioned. Definitely, I'd say the interior defensive linemen, Najon Barber, Bryce Langston are probably your two best bets.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how that goes. B, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that there's some, like Robbie said, there's some interesting guys in terms of maybe like some guys can fill some certain roles at the professional level, whether that being like the UFL, whether that be in the NFL. I think that the blanking on his name, one of the main cornerbacks for them last year.
Terez Reed. I'm glad you mentioned that. He's another guy as well.
Yeah, he's the one where, look, maybe not the biggest cornerback, maybe not the best quote unquote professional profile, but I really loved every snap he put out there this past season. It truly felt that, whether it's facing like a USF team that has a bunch of guys at the SEC level now, or really anybody up and down FAU's 2025 schedule, it felt like Reed was succeeding. And, whether you look at the actual stats, whether you look at some of the underlying numbers from PFF, that was borne out in the stuff he put on tape. I think he's the type of guy that if he gets a shot, he can easily fit into a NFL or just professional football rotation room in the secondary. He's probably, like, for me, at least personally, he's probably the one guy that I'm like, yeah, like this is the one that I think could have the most success at the next level out of this crop.
Yeah, I'm a big Terez Reed fan as well. I did want to talk about FAU spring practice. I think it's next week. It's
17th.
Yeah, so literally next week, if you're watching this live, if you're watching this on audio, it's in 6 days, not much of a difference. But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on, what position groups you're potentially looking at, any key players for you guys, what has to happen, with the coaching staff. Does the coaching staff have, like, how much of an improvement does there have to be from Zach Kitley in year 2? So Robbie, I'll start with you. Like, what are your thoughts going into this practice? What are you looking for? Give us a breakdown.
I don't know what I'm looking for anymore in spring games, honestly. I'm just glad they're doing it. You hear about a lot of programs that don't do anything at all. So at least they do. They open that up there to the fans. And in terms of the overall spring itself, I'm kind of it's tough, right? It's the same thing with the practice game, whatever you want to call it. You don't want to put too much stock into necessarily anything really, but I'm kind of interested to see wide receiver wise, right? Like I think this year you go into it with a little more of a sense, right? You got Easton Messer, he'll be your guy. You knew that last year, but now you got Dom Henry who's stepping into a bigger role this year. Brandyn Hoke as well. Is that your big three? Or, some of these guys that brought in, whether it's a Kelby Volson from Texas Tech, Tucker Holloway, I'm blanking on, whether some of the freshmen, Nick St. Joseph, Chase West, we saw last year. Brandyn Hoke got involved. Does Jade Card have does he step up this year? So there's potential. Jamari Powell, I'm forgetting his secondary last name, but for transfer from Maryland as well. There's a bunch of wide receivers there that could potentially step up in that room. We're not going to know, right? They're not going to give that to us too much in the spring game, but we can get a little bit of a sense, right? Who's out there making plays? Who else is out there? Period. The end. Besides Easton Messer, who's getting those secondary touches? I have a feeling, obviously, Brandyn Hoke, Dom Henry, but after that, who's it going to be? Running back wise, I think I want to see Leonard Farrow. I want to see what he looks like. I want to see kind of what he's bringing to the table. I think that's a real X factor in this offense next season. The running back room definitely was a big question mark last season. I think if he can be as talented as he was at the D2 level, that'd be a huge boost to the offense. And always keeping an eye on the tight end. Still big question mark necessarily as what its role is in the offense. Some games it was a factor. Some games not much of a factor. I don't know if that was game plan or positional depth, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. So this year I'm interested to kind of see how that develops and see if it is just going to be like a game by game basis, or if maybe the guys they have this year gives them a bit more comfortability to do something else. I don't know. Defensively, spring I like to stay away. A lot can change with the defense. We can see a DB out there now who won't even touch the field in a week after the spring ends. So also guys can transfer. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But can that still happen? I don't know. I honestly that can't happen anymore.
Technically,
not legally through the portal.
Yeah, but other than that, I'm not watching the defense, but offensively, I definitely, looking at the skill groups, kind of seeing the new guys out there. Farrow definitely being a guy I want to see with the ball.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty great point. So wide receiver position, seeing Assad Wasim's go kind of stings, especially he did a lot of talk, or especially during the season about that trio, but that happens. College football, guys are only there as long as they're there, so it'll be very interesting to see who does step up. As you said, Dom Henry seems fascinating, and the tight end conundrum that is in that Kitley offense. Is it because he didn't have faith in the room? Who is that? Was that by design, or was that by defect? So we'll find that out soon enough. Brandon, I wanted to get your thoughts on this now. What are you looking for from the spring period, from the team or from the coaching staff?
So I'm going to touch on the roster second. The first thing that I want to see is, what is FAU doing differently, right? Because heading into this season, like we talked about it on the last week's show, this has to be a year where FAU takes a step forward. This has to be a year where they, at minimum, make a bowl. This has to be a year where, considering the talent level that they've brought back at certain positions, they got to compete to an extent, especially in an American Conference that's much weaker comparative to last few seasons, to be honest. Like, obviously, Memphis still spent money. USF still spent money. Tulane still spent money. Like, the top of the top in terms of spenders still spent. But these are teams that are resetting. And this isn't like Robbie can attest this. This isn't like basketball where you can just flip a starting five and immediately, okay, if things mesh, now you're in a much better spot. Like, there's so much that goes into football in terms of your scheme, in terms of how the coach is going to do, in terms of play calling, or how they handle managing a full roster. And
Maybe you didn't hit on some transfers, right? There's so many different factors that go into it. FAU has a lot of those factors, which I'll get into in a second, but they don't have as much. They should have a top 3, anywhere from top 3 to the best quarterback in the American this season. They should have a very good running back coming back in Caden Shields-Dunn. They have a phenomenal wide receiver in Easton Messer. They even have some contributors back on defense. So you take all of that into account, you're starting at a baseline that's already so much better than where you were last year, where everybody's learning that new offense and everybody has to adjust to the culture that they want to build in Boca. How are they handling things differently? How are they going about practice? Is there a tweak in how they are approaching some install periods? Is there a tweak in how the leadership is being handled, right? That's kind of the main stuff I want to see, because like Robbie said, you don't want to take too much from, hey, this guy's playing here in the spring and this guy's playing there in the spring. It's more about how the team is coalescing, because that carries into the fall and that carries into the regular season. Now, looking at this roster, there are plenty of guys that I am very interested in. Robbie brought him up. Kelby Volson and Jamari Powell-Watson. Volson's the bit of the older one from Texas Tech. I'd expect him to get on the field relatively early. I think that coming from Texas Tech, he has some familiarity with Kitley, I'm pretty sure. I'm very excited to see how he factors into the offense. He should be a guy that competes for playing time. Powell-Watson, bit of a younger player. I think he's the type of guy that maybe it's not immediately in 2026, but I think he's the type of guy that can easily contribute to this roster. Obviously, Jade Card's a guy that I was very high on last season, last spring. I think Brandyn Hoke is in that same caliber. I think those guys should compete for playing time, and if they don't, I really don't know what to say. That's a receiver room that's wide open at this point. Those guys should be on the field in some capacity, right? Yeah. Running back position is a very interesting one, because not only do you have Farrow, not only do you have Caden Shields-Dunn, but if I am correct, they have a returning freshman, as I have the FAU roster pulled up in front of me.
Ethan Irvin.
Who?
Ethan Irvin.
Yes. I'm excited to see how Irvin progresses in his second full season, right? Because he's a guy that, there were some interesting schools after him during his high school recruiting process, showed some flashes last year. How does he factor into that room, in a room that not too many guys to beat out? Like there should be some snaps there for him if he does what he's supposed to do in the spring and in the fall. And then really comes down to just kind of like your summation of the other positions, right? How does the offensive line factor into basically the guard and tackle spots alongside Fia Cable, right? Because I think that needs to be an open competition. I think you truly need to go into this spring considering some of the issues you have with the offensive line. Not always in pass pro, a lot of the time in the run game. I think you need to put your best 5 out there. I think no matter who it is, obviously you have guys who are going to go into camp looking at to be some of those contributors right away. I think you need to go into the fall with your best 5 and go from there. I think the same goes for the defensive line. You need guys that can stuff the run, and you more than that, especially in this American Conference, you need guys that can get after the passer. Point blank. You need guys that are going to provide pressure, that are going to throw quarterbacks off their spot. In a conference that is having so many new starters, you need to make things uncomfortable. You need to make things very, very dicey right off the bat, because with how FAU is going to want to push the tempo, push the pace, that's a winning recipe, right? You have the quarterback that's going to steady the ship, that's going to elevate the wide receivers and the rest of the offense. You need the offensive line to protect him and to create holes for the run game for your running back that's returning. On the defensive side of the ball, how do you complement that offense? You get after the passer, you play much better coverage in the secondary, and you stop the run better up front and with the linebackers. Kind of similar to USF, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point in the show, considering their spring practice starts tomorrow. I'm interested to see the competition aspect, right? who is the coaching staff leaning toward early in the spring? Who are guys that are standing out in terms of maybe just impressing in drill work or impressing through, some of these quotes that the coaches are providing? Then the spring game gives us that final insight before we head into the fall. But overall, really looking forward to it. Like I think it's a very important season for FAU, for not only the present but also the future of the program. And I'm excited to see where they go from here.
Yeah, I'm very fascinated with the decision making. I'm also very interested to see how the quarterback, offensive coordinator / head coaching trifecta goes with Kitley in year 2. Robbie, before I get you out of here, man, I just wanted to get your opinion because we've kind of talked about this before and throughout the season where we saw the FIU versus FAU matchup. Obviously, the Shula Bowl. We didn't think that Kitley really handled it correctly in terms of the importance of that game, not just for the fan base, but the team in and of itself. Do you think he changes his demeanor this year, considering it's another early game and they could theoretically have a tough start, with the opener against Florida?
Yeah, that's definitely it's not an easy opening slate to the season, right? You go Florida and then you go Navy, right? You got to go play Navy right after John Summerall's first game at UF. I mean, that's not easy. And then you go into, I believe it's Texas Southern, and then it's FIU, or is it the other way around? It's either that way. I
think it's FIU, then Texas Southern.
Yeah, okay. Whatever way it is, still, that part of the schedule after 2 difficult games, you got to get up for it. You really have to win those 2 games. And then I believe Louisiana Monroe's mixed in there as well. You got to win those 3 games. I love me some SJ2. That's a great story. Shout out the blind side. But, FAU's got to win that game. That's not ULM is Brian Vincent's got them in a good position, but that's a game that FAU's got to win.
Not to interrupt, but the way this FAU schedule opens is at Florida, home against Navy, then it's home against FIU, at ULM, home for Texas Southern.
Okay, yeah. So it's FIU, then it's ULM, then Southern. Okay.
Yeah, so you get that's a little good of you get the FCS before the grind of the schedule, but you have to get up for that FIU game. There's a real chance FAU goes into that FIU game 0-2. You can't. There's no world where you go in 0-3 and things start spinning. After that, you go to ULM 0-3. All of a sudden, Warhawk Nation's looking at that game as a W, and you're going into a really hostile environment over there if they're all amped up. I don't know necessarily if that'll be the case, but we'll see. You got to find a way to get yourself up for the game if you're Kitley. I get it. It's just another football game, but if that's how you got to treat it, that's fine. But you got to win at the end of the day. Willie Simmons is going to have the pageantry there. He will he's 1-0. And he's made it clear that he values this game and the rivalry and everything that comes with it. So he's not trying to be 1-1. He's going to try to be 2-0. And whether that gives FIU some extra fire or if FAU uses that fire this year, I don't know. I do think coming back to Boca this year, that gives FAU a little bit better of a situation. Praying for better weather. That was awful, horrendous. Never again. Thankfully I didn't drive. The only thing that could have made that worse is if I drove down there. But yeah, they got to get up for it. Do I think he will? I don't know. Honestly. I think he might. I will say I think he might. I'm interested to see his approach this year. I don't know. I'm hoping to get out to the spring game if it doesn't cross paths with tournament coverage. But I'm interested to see his with Kitley's demeanor this year. But I think he might get up for it for sure.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. I remember the last year's Shula Bowl. I think I was dying of food poisoning while that game was going on. And that was the game. And with the 4-hour delay, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was fun stuff, not so fun stuff. But Robbie, before we get you out of here, because I know we ran a little late, just let everybody know where they can find you out on your social media and everything.
Yeah, you can give me a follow on X, R. Lastella Report. College basketball coverage on bracketeer.org. We got it all for you. Big East tournament this weekend, and then all 3 rounds. I'll be in Tampa, DC, and then Indy. So I'll be everywhere. Give me a follow if you like college basketball and FAU content as well. They're trying to win 5 games in 5 days starting tomorrow. We'll see if they can do it. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Go Owls, right?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see indeed. Thanks, fellas. You guys have a good night.
All right, take care, Robbie. That was Robbie Lastella. You can find him at our Lastella Report on X/Twitter, and he does great stuff out in the Boca Raton. I mean, he travels all the time now, so I don't know if I can say the Boca Raton region. But yeah, great guy for college football and college basketball. Shout out to the Bracketeers squad, Bracketeers.org. But Brandyn, we still got some FIU USF football to talk before we get you out of here. So you were at FIU's first practice today. If you're watching this episode on the audio podcast, it was yesterday. How was that? Willie Simmons year 2 the momentum off of a great season that they just had in his premier year with FIU. I know there's not much to see day 1 of practices, but give us your take.
Yeah, I mean, I love getting out there for practice. I feel like the season just ended. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I feel like I just blinked and we're into the 2026 season, and that's jarring in and of itself. But outside of that, how much can you take away from a first practice, right? There's so much that goes into the build-up. They only get 15 of these in the spring before the real training camp starts in the fall. But one thing that immediately popped out to me, quarterback J.J. Cole. I really enjoyed how he threw the football today. Like, just the touch, the ability to hit the different throws deep down the field, hit a really nice back shoulder throw to Tyson Carter today. Going to make sure I consult with my notes and make sure that is 100% correct. And drum roll, yes. Great back shoulder throw to Tyson Carter, had a perfect bucket drop touchdown throw to McGuire Anderson. Just showing that ability is really important. Willie Simmons in his post-practice presser really emphasized how excited he is to have a guy like Cole at quarterback. He also talked about former Delaware quarterback Zachary Waters and freshman quarterback DJ Alexander. They seem really happy and excited about these quarterbacks, and they're really excited to see them play this spring and throughout both camps, whether it be in the spring and the fall. And I really am interested to see the progression of the offense, because Simmons had mentioned today, what's the biggest thing? Like, he obviously didn't reveal too much, but he's like, what's the biggest thing? Or he was asked, what's the biggest thing between last year's offense and this year's offense? He mentioned tight ends. He's excited about to have tight ends that are vertical. He mentioned with the running back position that guys have home run speed, that they have guys that instead of, ripping off those 40-yard gains and getting caught, they're going to go 60 yards to the house, right? He mentioned the excitement around the wide receiver room, right? And obviously you could run down the list of all the different positions, but from an offense perspective, it really feels like that Simmons not finally, but in year 2, got quarterbacks that are his quarterbacks, right? That's not to say that they didn't target guys in last year's spring portal. That's not to say that he didn't pick his guys in terms of who he played and how he deployed his personnel. This is his full first class, from the high school class to the portal class and everything else in between. This is his group. And looking at the quarterback position, yeah, J.J. Cole and Alexander and Waters have mobility, but specifically Alexander and Cole, they have the size. They have the prototypical size. Cole has more than the prototypical size, standing at 6'7", I think he's listed. I'm not trying to do the meme there, but he is listed at 6'7". The fact that they have that guy with the prototypical size and the guy with the big arm and the guy that can hit all the different throws deep down the field, I think that's really impressive. And I think that's going to help unlock, let's say, a guy like a Kyle McNeil that has the speed and can take advantage of those deep shots. A guy like JoJo Stone, who showed that he can thrive as a deep ball threat deep down the field. I think it's going to help unlock, an Anthony Carey out of the backfield, whether it be as a runner or a pass catching threat. Like Simmons said in the presser today, I think it's going to help the tight ends. I think you're going to see an evolved FIU offense that is very similar to last year's, but I think it's going to finally look like the peak offense that Simmons wants to have. And obviously there's going to be snafus. There's going to be hiccups in the road. Nothing's perfect in football. It's all about adjusting and making changes and basically attacking what the opposition shows you. And I'm really interested to see that. And then on the flip side of things, I'm just excited to see competition because let's face it, the entire FIU secondary outside of Shamir Sterling, who I think is going to be in store for a phenomenal year.
Yeah.
It's wide open as my left headphone's about to fall out of my ear. The secondary is wide open. The line, he said, Willie Simmons, head coach of FIU, said that linebacker, a lot of that's wide open. He's excited to see how the defensive line competition goes, right? Like, we have so much competition when it comes to this program on the defensive side. And I'm just really interested to see who emerges, who makes those splash plays, who's consistent in different drills, who's consistent in, doing their role correctly. Because at the end of the day, so much goes into winning a starting spot. And right. I think that this staff, this specific FIU staff, showed that even if you're a freshman, even if you're a guy that's just making it on the campus or is new to the position or is new to college football, they will give you a shot. Look no further than a guy like Josiah McGrew. Nobody had him penciled in as a starter heading into the season, right? When we were doing this and talking about this stuff last spring, guess right. what? He ends up being one of the best players in Conference USA, one of the best defensive freshmen in the country. He's now at Arizona State for his second season, right? The same could be said for a Mr. Clark. The same could be said for a Brian Blaze II, who had a bit more of a pedigree, but still, he proved that he could be that primary outside cornerback, right?
Right.
I'm really interested to see who emerges, who really gets the job done today. Wesley Miller had 2 interceptions. He could be one of those guys that emerges, South Alabama transfer. So I'm keeping an eye on a lot of different stuff. Day one, I was happy that I got to see some stuff to really set that foundational sense for me for where, you can build upon it and really make those observations and judge. But I think we're in store for another fun spring in Miami.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Like you Simmons you alluded to, and Simmons talked about, the tight end position is going to be interesting. Wasn't really utilized too heavily last year. It's going to see the offense. I mean, as you talked about, I want to see what an FIU offense looks like when it's opened up, because there was a lot of limitations that the coaching staff had to deal with last year. And, they still managed to find a way to work around that and win a great amount of games. They ended up getting to a bowl game. They beat expectations. Now, with another year under Simmons' belt and him having, full control over the offense and the guys that he wants in the room, not necessarily the guys he inherited, how much does that change? I'm very fascinated to find out. And I want to see how that defense looks, because as you alluded to, they did lose a lot of great players, especially on the back end. Do you have any concerns with how that is? I know they brought in, Lawrence Johnson from FAU that we know, but they brought in, a few players on the back end too with some experience to help. So what are your thoughts on how that defense could potentially look going into the season?
I'm so fascinated because I don't know, right? Like, specifically if we're focusing on the secondary, right? If we're specifically focusing on the cornerbacks and the other starting safety spot, I don't have a good read yet, because it'd be one thing if let's run a not a simulation, but what's the best way I can put this? A hypothetical, right? Let's run a hypothetical.
Right.
Let's say FIU retained Josiah McGrew. They retained Mr. Clark. It'd be much easier to prognosticate who are the best types of players that fit alongside those guys, kind of in the sense of like building a basketball roster, right? Building out guys that complement each other and play the best in the scheme, so on and so forth. Everything is so wide open outside of really Jae Celestine and Shamir Sterling. And even then, you don't want to really limit anything because you want to keep things open to competition, right? Maybe you're more comfortable running a few different schemes if you have Lawrence Johnson win one of the corner jobs as opposed to if someone else wins it. Maybe you're more comfortable deploying Shamir Sterling in a different role if Wesley Miller wins that safety spot opposite of him. Maybe you have Sterling doing different stuff if a different safety wins it, right? So just keeping it with that lens, I think that's why the competition for a team like FIU is so important in the spring, because you don't know anything yet. You can have ideas, you can make assumptions, but until you know, I don't think you truly will see like the full grasp and the full unleashing of that scheme. Because guys have to work together and guys have to understand their play habits and play styles with each other. And I think once you deem the competition to be necessary or complete enough, or you've seen enough of it, then I think you can start to really see the growth of a team over the course of practice.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great point. I didn't think about it like that.
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't? Oh, no. Hold on. Let me try taking mine out. Let me try this.
Might be me.
All right. Let's see. Can you hear me now? Oh, we'll find out. Hold on.
Yeah, it's me. Hold on.
Oh, that's not great.
Okay.
Technical difficulties.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. I'll talk.
I think it's because of what happened in my left ear. It like shot
reset
down.
Oh, that's always fun. But no, I didn't necessarily think about it like that, like building around the back end guys and being able to, play to their strengths and support their weaknesses on the front side of things. I think that's very interesting because now it's kind of not necessarily shooting in the dark, but it's more of he may have guys more specific to his scheme that may get a spot, right? Like,
and it ties into the team as a whole, right? Especially when you have a team where, you don't lose everybody, but you lose a lot of key transfers, right?
Right.
Let's say you have a specific offensive line combination that is more comfortable running a specific run scheme than others. Maybe you add more of that into your offensive playbook because you're having so much success doing that in practice, right? Maybe you rely on a different set of schemes depending on the wide receivers that are in your starting lineup as opposed to a different group, right? Maybe you have a tight end that's really good at getting vertical. Now you add more of that into your scheme. Same goes with quarterback. On the defensive side, maybe more comfortable running certain stunts that you may have not been comfortable running before because guys progress to a certain level, right? It all ties together, right? We're not talking about a team that, hey, they're returning, 80% of their guys that started, and it's just a matter of learning the nuances of the scheme more and understanding what we're going to do and do it at a higher level, right? I think there's some more room for variance here. I think there's some more room for things being a bit different than they were last year, simply because of not only the new roster, but look at the back half of last year. What FIU was running in the back half of the year with Joe Pisansky on their center was way different. Not way different, but there wasn't a difference between what they were doing in the late half of the year when they were having success and what they were doing in the beginning of the year. I'd expect that again, just using that as a reference. I'd expect that again this year because there's a coaching staff that adjusts their personnel and really wants to not only have the best guys on the field for them, but also run the plays and concepts and schemes that fit those guys the best.
Yeah, those guys don't run from change, as I like to say. So that'll be fascinating to see, and it'll be fascinating to see how that progresses going forward. But I guess moving on, because you are in Tampa right now, we're talking a whole nother start to the spring practices, and that's the USF Bulls under head coach Brian Hartline. I guess I'm kind of ask you the similar-esque kind of question that we had talked about with FAU. What are you looking for in terms of players potentially sticking out or position groups, or what do you want to see from this coaching staff?
I'm going to give you a simple answer to work off of. Everything. I am looking at everything. Why am I looking at everything? Because FAU, USF basically has to evaluate everything, right? The entire offensive coaching staff went out. The entire coaching staff is basically out the door from last season. In terms of your offense, so many of your contributors are out the door. So many of your defensive contributors either graduated and then more of them transferred, right?
Right.
So you got a whole new coaching staff, a transfer portal class that, according to 247, has 41 players in it. You have a high school recruiting class that already has 13 early enrollees and has 5 more that will be there post spring ball for the fall, right? And you have a few key guys returning. every position should be wide open, right? The
Yeah.
quarterback position, if we look at that, right? Whether it is and I don't think he'll be the guy right off the bat, but looking at USF's roster as it stands, whether it's Van Buren or whether it's Bradford, the guy that he's the youngest in the room or tied for the youngest in the room with Cromahoke, whether it's him, Luke Cromahoke, Michael Van Buren, KJ Cooper, like that is a wide open competition. All those guys are coming in likely with the shot to win the job. Nobody is entrenched there. They are all coming in looking for an opportunity. Outside of, Alvin Isaac, nobody in the running back room has played significant snaps for USF. Right. Outside of Moody Rubin and Joshua Porter, nobody in that, Jaden Alexis as well. But not a lot of guys have really got on the field in the wide receiver room and the tight end room and the offensive line and the defensive line and the linebacker room, so on and so forth. Like, you can legitimately go position by position and say to yourself, wow, there's going to be competition here. There's truly going to be a chance that maybe the entrenched guy, the guy that is returning, that didn't get on the field, doesn't win the job because a transfer is competing with him, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. Hey, they brought in a transfer here, but USF had this guy that was here last year that maybe developed, has more time being in the program. Maybe he beats out the transfer that is expected to start. And I think what this allows is, for a lot of, intrigue in a sense, right? I think it allows for a spring period for a team that is transitioning to a new era, that is opening a stadium next season, to have way more, value for spring ball than most programs. This is a time period that I would imagine Brian Hartline and his staff are not taking lightly. They are not overlooking spring ball because they need it. They need spring ball to know who's making that good first impression, who's emerging as guys that we can trust, who are emerging as guys that could be productive in that last season at Raymond James Stadium, who can be guys that can help USF achieve their aspiration of not only winning the American Conference, but making it to the college football playoff, a task they could not achieve last season. So I really think that, yes, it's a generalized answer. I am saying that you're looking at everything, but it's not a generalized answer because they truly need to evaluate every single position on this roster. Whether you look at this school, or you look at a Memphis, or you look at a Tulane, or you look at a North Texas, so many schools at this level of football are going through the same thing. You have lost the majority of your key contributors. You're bringing in an entirely new coaching staff. You need to know what you have. And guess what? That makes these practices fun, because even if you're not seeing, all the plays on the field, or you're not getting the perfect analysis of every single situation, you want to know what these practices provide, whether it's on the field or in the press conference room. They provide an ability for you to get a first sense of what is actually going on. And once that spring game arrives and you see everything on the field, that is the most important thing heading into the fall, because that's your first glimpse into not only what the staff is going to look like in terms of deploying game plans and their guys on the field, but also who they're going to trust and who they're going to play in those key games in 2026.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I mean, people may feel it's a cop-out answer, but when you lose all of those players, I mean, you lose the Byron Browns, you lose the Jeremiah Cogers, you lose the Keyshawn Singletons on offense, you lose the Cole Bests. There's so many players that have to be replaced just on the offensive side of the ball. That doesn't include the defensive side, where you lose Matt Harris, Jalen Schuler, Deshaun Rucker, basically, it's a whole new team, right? A whole new team, whole new coaching staff.
Fred Gaskin, James Chenault, Jarvis Lee, Ira Singleton. There's a lot of guys that left. It is not a stretch to say that every position battle matters because you can go up and down the roster and at every single, I wouldn't say, basically every single position you can name a guy of significance that left.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of
Every single
insane to think
position,
about.
whether through transfer or graduation, you can name a guy at basically every single position that left for USF that is of some significance.
Yeah, and it's kind of insane to think about. I mean, just off the top, maybe on one hand, how many guys that are still on the team from last year that are going to be like in a solid, not even just returning from the team from last year, just have a solid position, in a Medea Rubin or a Wyatt Sullivan, maybe the two guys that we know whose role is going to be what it is. But I mean, even who knows? We don't know yet. So that'll be beyond fascinating to see. Scheme wise, what are you looking for? What are you expecting to see from USF? Are you expecting to see a Buckeyes light type of offense? Are you expecting something potentially different, or is it a who knows based on what we see?
I mean, you can only go off what you're told, right? In a sense, before you see it on the field. But last press conference that took place in Tampa, Coach Brian Hartline said that their scheme is going to be dependent on what their guys do best. So we're going to see what guys went out and what those guys do best. And I'm very excited to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I'm going to be fascinated to see that as well. I also give a shout out to Mackenzie Neglia, who does write for us covering USF. I believe she's going to be at the practice with you as well, if I'm not mistaken. Make sure you guys follow her on X/Twitter at Mackenzie, MacKenzia. Neglia, Neglia, all one word all together. Very, very great staff writer for the League Winners Interview reporter covering USF. But Brandon, before I get you out of here, any last thoughts on your mind before we go, whether it's NFL or college football related?
I have no idea how this Max Crosby thing is going to unfold. I am so fascinated to see where the cards lie. I am so fascinated to see how Vegas handles this with all the free agent signings they've made. I don't know how Baltimore handles this when so much of the market has moved already. Right. Let's not forget this, right? Not to go on too much of an NFL tangent. This move was made very early on in the process. This move was made so Vegas could make their moves. These moves were made so the Ravens could make their moves. And now you're dropping a complete wrench bomb, whatever descriptor you want to use in this process before all these deals go official. I'm excited to see what the fallout looks like because there's going to be some fallout from this. 1,000%.
Yeah, that's going to be fascinating. There's no way he stays though, right? Like there's no way
Max Crosby went on a podcast and basically torched the entire Las Vegas Raiders organization. And now he is back on the roster. So my answer to that is no. I don't think he will stay.
Yeah, probably best for all parties. Brandon, before I let you go, man, let everybody know what you have coming up, where they can find you on social media, and anything else you want to tell.
Yeah, I'm finishing up an article for the League Winners regarding wrapping up the 2026 recruiting class, whether that is the transfer portal or high school recruiting. Stay tuned for that in the coming days. Spring practice is rolling, so we got FIU coverage and USF coverage in this week. FAU starting on the 17th, leading up to spring game coverage. Very excited for that. Otherwise, you can find all my stuff at BPOC24 on Twitter, on Instagram. I'm on Blue Sky at Brandyn-Pokrass. You can find me on TikTok. Want to keep rolling out the short form videos. What are those short form videos going to be? I don't know yet. We shall find out together, but I'm excited to keep pumping those out. And yeah, just looking forward to another fun spring coming up. Very, very excited and interested to see where things go from here.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. And I appreciate you coming on as always, my friend. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have a good one.
That is Brandyn Pokrass, Vice President of the League Winners. You can find him at BPOK24 on X/Twitter or on Instagram. Stay tuned and make sure you follow him for any FAU, USF, and FIU updates and potentially some UF, Miami. We might see a couple other other programs in there. Daniel Tortora, unfortunately, isn't able to make it. As I said at the beginning of the show, normally he comes on for our 9 o'clock segment, but he's actually at an ACC tournament right now. Shout out to Dan, love you, brother. wish we could talk, but hey, it happens. That's the kind of business that we are in. I've just noticed I have a little dot on here. That's fun. That's the kind of world we live in, though. So fun times. I do appreciate him, but I'll. Before we get out of here, make sure you guys click that like button. It's completely free to do so. Leave a comment. Even if the show ends, I'll get to it within 48 hours, whether you're watching on X/Twitter, whether you're watching on YouTube, or whether you are watching on Facebook. And if you enjoy the content, follow the page or share it for your friends and family to watch if you like college football content. As for me, I will be going to Delaware this Friday to cover the Delaware Blue Hens Pro Day. Shout out to them. Nick Minicucci, Coach Ryan Cardy, doing great things. Minicucci came in actually to take over for Zach Marker's injury, and Zach is at FIU now. So shout out to Zach. He's a great kid on his own right. And that'll be fascinating. Jake Thaw, Kyra Duplessis are two of the bigger names. Fenton Bros, offensive lineman, is also going to be at the Pro Day, as well as a couple other players, my own Pollard, safety out of there. It's going to be very fascinating and interesting to see, and I can't wait to give you guys the live updates on that. But this is Thomas Christopher. It's because we are unfortunately running the show a little bit short because Dan was unable to come at the last second. I do apologize for any listeners of that in advance. But before we get out of here, this is Thomas Christopher of the League Winners. Catch you guys next time. I appreciate you all checking it out.